On a seemingly ordinary day in the small town of Maplewood, Daniel Thompson, a devoted father of 3 daughters, took a stroll through the local park, trying to carve out a slice of joy amidst the complexities of life. The autumn sky hung low and gray, and a brisk wind rustled the colorful leaves scattered on the ground, creating a vibrant tapestry beneath their feet. At 44, Daniel bore the weight of widowhood with an air of resilience, his rugged hands, calloused from years of hard work, clasped firmly around the tiny hands of his 2 youngest daughters. Meanwhile, his eldest, Sophia, age 7, skipped ahead, her laughter ringing like a melody through the chilly air. Daniel's heart was a mix of pride and worry. Since his wife, Sarah, passed away 2 years ago, he had been juggling 2 jobs to make ends meet while raising his daughters alone in a small, modest apartment. Though his clothes were worn and his face etched with lines of concern, his warm smile illuminated the gloom that often threatened to overshadow his days. Sophia, with her mother's deep brown hair and his restless curiosity, often led the way in their small adventures, while 5-year-old twins Lily and Rose, with their golden curls and sparkling blue eyes, remained at his side, bringing endless energy and laughter. As they approached the swings, Daniel took a moment to sit on a nearby bench, allowing himself a brief respite from the responsibilities that weighed heavily on him. His gaze drifted over the park, taking in the families enjoying their day. Elderly couples holding hands, young parents laughing with their children, and groups of friends walking their dogs. However, his attention was abruptly captured by an unusual sight. A well-dressed woman with dark sunglasses, her expensive jewelry glinting in the dim light, moving with a hurried urgency toward a nearby trash can. Curiosity piqued. Daniel stood, calling out to his daughters to stay close to him as he approached the trash can. Something felt off about the scene. As he got closer, he noticed the woman's nervous glances around the park, as if she were checking to see if anyone was watching. With swift and furtive movements, she dropped a cardboard box into the trash before quickly walking away. Heart pounding, Daniel's instincts kicked in. He opened the lid of the trash can and cautiously lifted the box. The moment he opened it, his blood ran cold. Inside lay a tiny pale baby, barely a few days old, swaddled in a thin blanket and seemingly abandoned. The child's small eyes were closed, and Daniel felt an overwhelming rush of despair wash over him. Without hesitation, he wrapped the baby in his coat and looked around, searching for the woman who had thrown the child away. "Hey, wait!" he shouted, his voice tinged with urgency. As he ran after her, he saw the woman turn, her expression shifting from surprise to fear. She was an imposing figure, her delicate features twisted with anger and distress. "What do you want?" she hissed, her voice trembling. "This baby. Why did you leave him? He needs help." Daniel replied, breathless and clutching the child closer to his chest. The woman's eyes darted nervously. "That's none of your business. If you tell anyone, I will end your life and the baby's." The threat struck Daniel like a punch to the gut, and instinctively he took a step back, shielding the fragile infant in his arms. She quickly turned and vanished into the trees of the park, leaving Daniel paralyzed with fear and confusion. He stood frozen for a few moments, grappling with the gravity of the situation. The reality of having an abandoned baby in his arms collided with the chilling threat he had just received. Torn between the instinct to protect his daughters and the urge to save the helpless child, he ultimately made his choice. Hurrying back to where his daughters were playing, Daniel felt a surge of emotions. He called them over, trying to keep his voice steady. "Girls, come here," he said, kneeling down to their level. "This baby needs our help. We're going home?" Sophia's eyes widened with curiosity as she asked, "What is that, Daddy?" "It's a baby who needs us," Daniel replied, his heart heavy. The walk home was tense. Daniel held the baby securely in one arm while guiding his daughters with the other. Thoughts swirled in his mind, and as they entered their small apartment, he quickly improvised a makeshift crib using a drawer lined with soft blankets. As his daughters watched with fascination, Daniel carefully cleaned and warmed the baby, who began to cry softly. The sound brought both relief and a reminder of the gravity of the situation. "Daddy, can we keep him?" Lily asked, her blue eyes sparkling with hope. Daniel smiled sadly, his heart aching. "No, my dear. This baby has a family somewhere, and they must be looking for him." He fed the baby warm milk with a small spoon, every moment filled with worry and determination. Emma's threat echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that he had to act cautiously. The baby needed medical care, and more importantly, protection. That night, after putting his daughters to sleep, Daniel stayed awake, watching the small bundle next to him. He debated with himself, fighting against the fear that paralyzed him. The right decision seemed obvious, but the consequences terrified him. What if the threat was real? What if he put his own daughters in danger? The hours dragged on, interrupted only by the baby's soft murmurs. Daniel felt a sense of urgency growing within him. How could someone abandon such a tiny, defenseless being? With resolve, he decided to act. He called his sister, asking her to watch over his daughters while he took the baby to the police station. The police station loomed large with its red brick walls and gleaming glass doors. Stepping inside, Daniel hesitated, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. The interior buzzed with officers and civilians, an atmosphere thick with urgency and tension. A kind officer approached, noting the concerned look on Daniel's face. "Can I help you, sir?" Taking a deep breath, Daniel explained the situation, detailing the park, the woman, and the baby he found abandoned. His voice trembled as he shared the story, the officer listening intently, occasionally casting worried glances at the child. Just as the officer began to ask more questions, the station door burst open. A man entered, his face twisted in anguish, searching frantically until his eyes landed on the baby in Daniel's arms. "My son," he shouted, rushing toward them. The officer quickly stepped in front of him, urging him to calm down. The newcomer introduced himself as Josh, the baby's father. "Please, this is my son. My wife, she's not well. She suffers from postpartum depression." He gasped, desperation evident in his voice. "I had no idea she would do something like this." The room fell silent, the revelation hitting everyone like a bombshell. Daniel looked at Josh, seeing not an enemy, but a man engulfed in pain and worry. The officer suggested they move to a private room to discuss the situation. In the hours that followed, the full story unfolded. Emma, once a successful businesswoman, had faced a difficult pregnancy and a complicated delivery. What should have been a moment of joy turned into a nightmare of anxiety and depression. Unable to cope with the pressures of motherhood, she spiraled downwards, culminating in the horrifying act of abandoning her child. Josh explained, tears streaming down his cheeks, how he had searched desperately for Emma and their baby over the past 24 hours. He had no idea his wife had reached such a breaking point, and guilt consumed him as he realized the extent of her struggles. Daniel listened, his heart heavy with empathy for the couple. He glanced down at the baby in his arms, now sleeping peacefully and unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. After hearing all sides of the story, the police officer proposed a plan of action. Emma needed immediate professional help, and the baby should be examined by doctors. Josh readily agreed, grateful for any guidance during this crisis. As they discussed the procedures, Daniel found himself reflecting on his own journey as a father. His loss, the daily struggles of raising his daughters alone, the moments of doubt and fear. He saw in Josh a reflection of himself, two fathers struggling to keep their families together amid chaos. With a compassionate heart, Daniel approached Josh. "I know we don't know each other, but if you need someone to talk to, I'm here." Being a father isn't easy, especially when we face unexpected challenges. Josh looked at Daniel with gratitude, tears welling in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved my son. I can never thank you enough." The weeks that followed were filled with uncertainty and healing. Emma was admitted for psychiatric treatment, facing her inner demons with the support of dedicated professionals. Josh balanced caring for the baby and visiting his wife, finding strength in an unexpected support network. Against all odds, Daniel became a crucial part of this network. His regular visits to the hospital, often accompanied by his daughters, brought a ray of light to Emma's dark days. The girls, with their innocence and contagious joy, managed to elicit shy smiles from Emma, reminding her of the beauty that still existed in the world. As time passed, a gradual transformation occurred. Emma, with the appropriate treatment, and the unconditional support of Josh and the blossoming friendship with Daniel and his daughters, began to emerge from the darkness that had consumed her. She faced her fears, learned to accept help, and recognized her own inner strength months later. Standing together in the park where it all began, Daniel and Josh shared a deep bond forged through hardship and compassion. As they watched their children playing, Daniel felt a profound sense of hope for the future. The pain of loss was still present, but it no longer overshadowed the joy of connection and community. The laughter of their children echoed around them, reminding them both of the resilience of the human spirit. In a world filled with challenges, they discovered that kindness could create bridges where once there had been barriers. With every new day, they chose hope over despair, and in doing so, they found solace in the strength of family, friendship, and love.